please click the subscribe button and the notification icon. It will help us a lot. Hi, this is Rodrigo from Level Up, and today we have here Leanne Bonner Cooke. She is the founder and CEO of E-Bate, and they are like a platform that helps companies to manage contracts with buyers and suppliers completely digitally, which will be amazing, specifically in this era where everybody is locked down, to centralize communication so that they can have everything ordered into their platform, process commercial transactions in real time, manage payments and claims, and analyze agreements for better negotiations. Now, they have already raised €1 million, but they are still going in fundraising rounds, and I hope that everything goes amazing for them. So without any further ado, welcome, Leanne.
Good evening.
So can you tell us a little bit about the story of how eBate got started? How did you get the idea of building this platform, and a little bit of your background on what called you into becoming an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So when I first left school, I trained as an accountant. So I was here in the UK, a Chartered Institute of Management accountant. And in those days, it was all very manual processes. So I then got a taste for technology as it was introduced into the corporate world, and found it fascinating how technology could transform processes and make them more efficient. So at that point, I switched from accounting into technology, and then had a corporate career for 20 years. And in 2007, I set up my first business, which was called Evolve IT Consulting. And just even that business itself showed me where the entrepreneurial spirit came from. I set up the business, had one idea that it was going to be a consultancy. We had a recession in 2008. We changed focus and became more of a process business improvement, a software development center. And today we have a big R&D center in the Ukraine with 65 developers in it. So that transition changed completely. And I think what an entrepreneur does is, I don't think it's innovation and entrepreneurship isn't like innovating something necessarily from scratch, but it's changing things at a point to make improvements. And that's what that company did. But during that company, we were being asked to build bespoke rebate management solutions for large, big enterprise customers. And they were using the likes of SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards. So this led us to believe that the ERP vendors weren't supplying the services around rebate management. So after implementing 6 or 7 bespoke solutions that were a high cost to the end customer, we identified that there absolutely was a gap in the market, and that we would build a tool that was a true SaaS solution, but highly configurable by the end user to accommodate the different sector needs. What that meant was we did a lot of research into the sectors that we wanted to operate within. We tried to build it so that it's highly configurable as a tool. And what it actually means is that we've built a product that has a good user interface. It's quick to implement. So you can demonstrate those returns on investment to the client very, very quickly.
Awesome. And this is something that came to my mind because, again, like I have a business register in the US, but I have been also in Europe, in many countries, and in London as well. And I started to notice that, well, pretty much rules for business and how accounting is being done in every country is a little bit different. So I wanted to ask you, like, does your platform focuses completely on the United Kingdom, or is something that many countries can use? And if so, how do you deal with pretty much these modifications, let's call it that way, like these different ways that other people, in these other ways that other people do in different countries?
Yeah, so the answer to that is yes, we do trade across multiple countries. So we're obviously an early stage business. Our initial target was to UK companies, or where the head office was in the UK, but then that since has meant a global penetration as well with those companies. So if there's a UK head office but a global representation, then the product can cope with that as well. We're now marketing directly to the US as well, and our long-term objective would be to find a partner in the US to partner with to help sell the product, or we will open up an office dedicated there. But how we can support multi-countries is through our multi-currency platform. So we can bring into the application multiple currencies, and we have a conversion process that happens. And then the other thing is taking into account the different taxation laws at a different country levels. So for example, in the UK, taxation is really relatively straightforward. So we have a country tax, it's called VAT, and we will have the VAT either it's exempt or you pay it. Whereas other countries, so America, the same, you have the state tax, you've got the country tax. So there's lots of different tax obligations that form a part of this. All of the calculations that we do are net of any taxes or VAT, so that mitigates us from the tax liability. What we aren't is a financial system. What we are is a rebate management processing tool.
Nice. That is something really good to know. And also, how did you, this is something that maybe is not clear in my mind because I'm not an expert on these areas, but do you need like a permit or something that allows you to manage through this? I imagine that when it comes to helping companies manage money, that the government usually have some regulations on top of that. So do you need a specific permit to be able to manage this, or is something that you can just jump in and find a solution?
No, we don't. So what we do is we have API integration with your existing finance solution. So we're not creating the data. So for example, a rebate is basically where a proportion of money is given back as an incentive for somebody to buy more for you or from you. So we would capture all the business rules on what that contract is as to the amount of money that's going to be given back. We then integrate with your systems, your ERP systems or your finance systems. We bring in all those sales transactions. We calculate then the rebate due to you or what you owe against the business rules. And at that point then we push it back into the finance system for you to accrue that financial liability. We reverse that back out. We push the payment into your finance system for you to raise the invoice or the credit within your finance system. So all that financial regulation, so in the UK it's FSA, is still maintained within the finance system. They've built those already to accommodate all of that. So our point is just to integrate with those.
Awesome. And when it comes to building this platform, do you already have like the knowledge, the technical knowledge to build the platform itself, or did you have to hire other people to help you out with the technological part? And if so, how was your experience pretty much managing let's say the creation of this platform? And this is a question that I do to many founders, specifically in this, because just to give you a little bit of context, one of the most common excuses that I hear other entrepreneurs saying about not going into an idea is that they do not know how they are actually going to create it, right? So, but in these interviews, we have a lot of people already who do not know how to do it, technically speaking, but they have managed a team to create this. And if you manage a team like that, I would like to see how was your experience on dealing with them and pretty much giving them the instructions.
Yeah, so fortunately, I come from a technology background, so I already own a technology-based business. And so whilst I myself could not build the technology, I do know how to manage the teams that do. So initially when we first started out, we subcontracted to Evolve IT Consulting. They had an offshore development team already. So they provided us with the solutions architect and our internal people then worked with them. So we owned the product internally. We could specify what we wanted, but then their solutions architects and designers designed the product around our needs. Subsequently then that's what we called an extended team. So we extended our own team with the offshore resources from Evolve IT Consulting, and then we've since brought them into our business. So now they've become a core part of our business. And I think with any new startup, it is looking at the portfolio of skills that you need is the challenge. to help you, and being able to articulate to them what it is that you want, but without being too prescriptive. And I would say that developers and designers are innovative in their own right. So I think you need to give them a brief, but then let them do it the way they want to do it.
Nice. And I was in Europe for a while, and this is something that, to be honest, the environment from Europe itself was so different to me that it took me a while to get used to it. But one of the things that I love is that this ability that people have there to attack entrepreneurship in a completely different way to what we are used on this side of the world, on America, let's say, as a continent. And one of the advantages that I loved was this ability to being able to tap into talents from other countries really easily. Like you just mentioned that you had your team of people coding this platform in Ukraine. I myself have animators from Ukraine as well. We have an animation business, and we help businesses create animated commercials or explainer videos for the platforms. And we had talents from, we right now have an animator from Russia. We had in the past an animator from Ukraine as well. And I really love that this ease of movement that people have there, where you can tap into opportunities really easily. Like you just got on a flight for 3 hours to another country and go to different events in different countries, hire people from different countries as well. And even I have friends who have moved completely, let's say, to a country like Poland, where everything is cheaper, and and they are still working with clients in Sweden or UK or something like that, so they get paid as if they are in the UK or in Sweden or in Norway, but then they live in Poland, so everything is way cheaper, and they are living amazingly there. So what are other advantages that you think Europe has when it comes to entrepreneurship that maybe are not available on this side of the world?
I think one is the geography. We're close to everything, so we do have the opportunity to, like you say, fly for 2 hours, 3 hours, etc. And we have access to a completely different talent pool within that space. So I think that does help. I also think it's the openness of admitting that we can't do everything ourselves, and therefore make use of the ecosystem that's out there. So here in the UK, we can have good software developers, but the problem became that the salaries increased so significantly and the talent started to dilute. So you would be paying premium salaries, but not getting people that were with the latest technologies. They weren't educating themselves. So it became quite a challenge to find the quality over the cost that you were paying. What opening up your network across the rest of Europe or the world gives you is that ability to tap into other talents and skills. And I think for us personally within the Ukraine, the talent there was more keen, they were more hungry to be the best at what they wanted to do. And so they're always self-educating, self-developing in latest and newer technologies. So that's obviously a benefit to us as an organization, that we can leverage some of that. But whilst at the same time not being too maverick, that we're always going, hey, let's have the latest and the greatest. We clearly don't want to do that either. It costs us too much. But there is a balance there. But I think it is the, obviously, the commute across Europe is inexpensive and very easy. Not at the moment.
Yeah, definitely not at the moment, but back then I remember I was completely blown away because I had this experience when I was in Sweden, and I had to pretty much get to my plane, and I was a little bit late, so I took a train in Central Station that went directly to the airport, and that cost me about $23. Around something like that. But then I realized that the plane from Sweden to Poland was only $17. So it was like, this train for a shorter distance just cost me more than traveling to a whole different country. And I thought that was a little bit crazy for me. But another thing that I realized as well is the ease of how to manage money in Europe, this is an ease that I don't think we have in America, because well, in Europe we have like all these options like Revolut, TransferWise. Like it is really easy to Pioneer as well comes from the UK if I remember correctly. Uh, and Corp, there is a lot of options when it comes to electronic services that actually give you like debit cards and where you can transfer money from one country to another and do payments and manage all of it very fast, very easy. And when it comes to America, I think like they have extra control on how people manage their money. Like it is really too tight. And yeah, I think that platforms like yours are an example of the kind of freedom that Europe allows to entrepreneurs that uh, it, again, like it's just so much easier to manage money and to manage transaction over Europe than it is in this side of the world. So on top of that, uh, going on that, like what are the challenges that you have found when learning the system of the United States and trying to expand here?
I think for me it is the regulation. You're correct, and I think trying to expand into the US, whilst obviously we're trying to do that from the UK initially. So two challenges there. One is the time difference, but secondly, you're not going to go and invest in an office and a setup in the US if you can't get penetration into a sector somewhere. So you'd like to try and do it from the UK first and then move over. I think even then, if you set up an office in the US itself, the challenges are the location, the different state laws, and it's not as though you come to England and you set up an office, it doesn't matter where it is. Whereas you come to the US and depending on which state you're in, all the regulations, all the laws, everything else all changes with it. So it really is finding out, it's a minefield to investigate where would be the best place.
Yeah, I think just for you to check out and to make it easy for you, I think Delaware will be a good place to start. Because I think they are the ones that have like the least regulations when it comes to companies. Pretty much Delaware is like their own fiscal paradise. So we have
where was that? Sorry.
Delaware, in the state of Delaware, in the United States. So we have our studio register in Delaware as well, because we use this service from Atlas. From Stripe, so we were able to register it there. But so far we have found it like really easy, and again, we are not from the US, we are from El Salvador. So back then when we registered the company there, we didn't even have a visa. We never went to the US even once. But thanks to them, we were able to set up the company in Delaware and pretty much get all the papers ready. So I think that will be a good start for you, because it will allow you a lot of freedom. And also investors in the US, they like when the corporations are registered in Delaware, because they know that there is that freedom for to act and to be able to be a little bit more faster than other companies in other states. and on going more about your experience, something that I found out in my path is that when I started out, I thought that I was going to face some challenges, some problems, and what I found out was that they never happen. These problems never happen, and pretty much the things that were really hard were the things I never even thought about. So on the spirit of finding out the things that we don't know, what was something in your career that you didn't expect it at all, but is very important to know, and you think that is a lesson that every entrepreneur should know?
I think there's been several, and so for me, I think the first lesson is take the opportunities and don't be scared. So I think there's a lot of great ideas out there. There's a lot of good entrepreneurial thinking out there, but there's something that stops them going for that idea or to progress it further forward. And I think that is just the fear. And it's the fear of like the failure, the unknown. So my biggest challenge was leaving a corporate world and a healthy salary to set up on my own, and I had no idea whether I could make it or not. But I think you have to look at what your overall objective is, but then celebrate your successes as they come, because I think we as entrepreneurs have a big vision and a big idea, and that's what we're focused on. And then what we don't do is look at the steps that it takes us to get there and celebrate each one that we've come across or that we've been successful at. So we tend to then fear the failure of that big objective that we're aiming for. Whereas actually we're learning and achieving every single day.
Yeah, I think that is very true what you just said. And also, if you were to meet a young, driven student with a lot of talent who is about to enter, let's call it the real world, what is the advice that you will like to give that person, and also what advice should that person ignore?
I would do two things really. I think what going into the normal job or the normal world, so to speak, does give you a lot of commercial experience and grounding, because ultimately they're probably the people that you're going to be selling to in the future. So I think that there's two approaches really, and it depends on your roots to what you're going to do in your career. But I would say having a corporate career does give you that fundamental baseline around how to operate within a company and what that means in a large into a large structure. Then when you set up in an entrepreneurial fashion, you've got that vision as to what big looks like and how you need to behave. So I think that's one thing. However, if you take the route and you go straight into business yourself, then I think that there's more around surround yourself with mentors. You know, you are young, you're inexperienced, you don't know it all. So even if you've got a great idea, take advice from others around you and listen.
That is a great advice, and I agree with you. Like, I had even a couple of jobs. Well, I have one job in particular that for me was hell, but even though I can admit that I would not like to repeat that experience ever again in my life, and that it sucked, I can see now how it helps me, because even now when I face hardships when it comes to my business, like I can ask easily, like, do I feel as miserable as I felt back then? And the answer is always no. So that helps.
I think as well with and it's not just entrepreneurs but most people, quite often the thing that we, like you said, the thing that we think about or the thing we think we're going to fail at, so that fear that churns us up and makes us feel like a bit horrible inside, the reality is never as bad as what we in our own minds create it to be. Never.
Yeah, that is very true as well. And on your path to create this company and through your experience, have you ever had like something that looked like a failure or felt like a failure back then, but actually has set you up for later success?
I think regularly. So even with this venture, this has only been going for 2 years, but I initially set up the business. It was self-funded, and we also used money from the existing development company to fund the development in the first instance. And then we knew that we needed to go out and get more money. And the challenge always is when you're an early stage business, is where do you go to get the money? So, you know, you can probably get like 20, 50,000 euros relatively easily. But when you're building a SaaS software solution, it costs a lot of money to build. So it's finding somebody that understands that and is willing to work with you. So we were then out looking for investment. And at that point, we were just agreed to do a deal. That took a year to find the money. And we were looking for the €1 million. That took a year to find that money. And then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, right in the middle. So for me, it was like, wow, I've invested all this money personally and borrowed, you know, money from other high net worth individuals. And now this is going to go nowhere. And at that point, it was about keeping your resolve about why you were doing this in the first place, and then focusing on just recovering really, so we could get back on track. And it delayed our investment by 4 months, but we still managed to do the deal and still got that over the line. So I think, you can overcome diversity, and it's just thinking differently, applying yourself differently. And, you just have to remain positive and stay motivated.
Yeah, definitely. I think that those are the kind of hits that one never expects. But it's really hard to push through that. But I'm glad that you were able to do it. And through this experience, have you learned any new belief, habits, or behavior that actually help you improve your life, be it professionally speaking or in general?
I think two things. I think both personally and professional. So personally, more about that whole work-life balance. And secondly, as an entrepreneur, I think sometimes you feel that you have to work all hours that God sends, and that it's more about your own fear of failure that drives that, as opposed to thinking, each day I go to work and I absolutely do the best that I can. And I don't actually really care what anybody else thinks anymore, as long as I have gone to work and delivered what I believe is the best. Then I think that's enough. And I think it's knowing when enough is enough.
Yeah, that is really good. And yeah, I do struggle still with the work-life balance. I still feel like I should be working every minute of every day, and I'm trying to oblige myself in trying to rest.
We associate that with success, don't we? So we associate that if I work hard or if I work 15 hours a day, then I'm going to be more successful. But actually, if you just worked 7 hours a day and they were productive and you were highly responsive in those 7 hours, you will probably end up being a better person, having more time to think. And so I think that there is a disjoint, and I think nobody's asking us to do it, but I believe as entrepreneurs we feel that that's what we've got to do to be successful.
Yeah, and also on this topic, whenever you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do to try to get back into the center so that you can keep working functionally?
Call my business coach.
So this is a new one. I never had somebody who actually had a business coach. How is your experience with that, and how did you got it?
So I've had various coaches and mentors throughout my career, but I think one of the things is when you are of that entrepreneurial spirit is if you're at the top of your game, there isn't anybody else for you to share those issues and things with. So it can be lonely. So I think that you absolutely need an outlet and somebody that can talk to you. And generally, it's not the things that I need to talk about are not around business. So I don't need somebody to coach me on business or success of business or selling. But it's about your own personal feelings and how you feel and your emotions and things. And it's quite hard to discuss that with somebody else around you or within the business. So I think it's really important from a well-being perspective in looking after yourself.
Yeah, and again, like this is something that I really love about Europe when I was there, that this ability to be able to find people like that, people like you who are working on similar projects and on a similar path. This is something that I think America as a continent on this side of the world should be able to do better, because over there was just a lot of events, like free events, or that you just were able to check on social media or through an app and just go and meet a lot of people who can understand a little bit more about what you're going through. But as you say, it is really important to have people who understand the struggles that you're going through, because if not, it can feel really, really lonely.
Absolutely. And again, I think that comes, obviously the UK is a very, very small place. So quite quickly you can get access to a whole magnitude of talent across the whole country, very, very quickly, which I do think helps in this situation. I think, again, in the States, you're very spread out. So, even if you're a state away, it's the same size as the UK.
And going back a little bit to your business, I know that you have been very busy going into funding rounds and trying to find investors. And I imagine that this whole situation that we're going through worldwide is not making things easier. So I wanted to ask you about how is your experience right now finding investors in the middle of all this chaos?
It's challenging. So it's extremely challenging. I think a lot of the venture capitalists in the UK are focusing on their own portfolio companies, really to help them survive throughout this period. So there's not a lot of new money coming out into new businesses. We're fortunate in the fact that we were backed in our first round of investment by a VC called Mercia Asset Management, and they have backed us to 50% of our open round this time as well. So that's good. Also, to try and maintain the economy within the UK, there is the government themselves have done a lot to support businesses. So there's something called a future fund. So at the moment, if you can get funding from a venture capitalist, then the government are matching that funding, which is exceptional. You know, it's a good deal. So they are trying to do a lot. And what's been recognised is that the UK economy will struggle if we don't continue to plough money into those early stage businesses that actually are our economy of the future.
Yeah, this is something that pretty much I think every country is struggling right now. Pretty much because of the lockdown, the economy has been thrown into complete chaos, and there is a lot of analysis showing that it is really important to keep one, to reopen the economy worldwide speaking, and secondly to try to keep helping the small businesses and the startups, because as you say, like these are the things that are going to be giving the jobs that in the next year or two. So, and with so many people losing their jobs already, like this is going to be needed for like a lot.
Yeah. But then again, you know, it's challenging times because you're taking this, you know, having more money, getting the investment coming in, and it is tough times. You know, we don't know whether the business will succeed over these periods of times. Clearly, it's affected pipeline and sales. So it is that balance as to, you know, you need to keep going. Again, I think what we're doing in this time is focusing on the whole digital piece. So if you're digitizing a process, then it's easier to operate remotely rather than having to be in an office. And there are some sectors where rebates are highly prolific, so in pharmaceuticals and consumer goods, and those sectors are still very buoyant as well during this period.
And when it comes to the meetings with the venture capitalists or investors to try to get funding, and dealing with this whole situation, like, do you have to go and meet them personally still, or are these meetings going like this?
They're going like this, so exactly, they're all over Zoom, which from an investment community is unheard of. They just don't operate in that way. So normally it would all be about face-to-face, it's about the relationships and pitching, and now they have no choice, so they are pitching over Zoom calls.
Yeah, because I think that this is, as you say, unheard of. So far I have, to be honest, looking for investors is something that I haven't tried to do yet, but it's something that I also haven't taken out completely out of my mind. I just want to, I would like to keep as much control of my company as long as possible, let's say. But so far, still, I have investigated a lot into this issue because it's something that I might want to do in the future. And yeah, it's just say like everything that I found was that all these meetings were always happening in person, like meeting face to face. Like I even tried just out of curiosity to find out a year ago, like if there were some investors who would meet like completely online, and I wasn't able to find anyone. So now that this is happening, it's like kind of groundbreaking. And so I would like to ask, I think it's probably not going to be this way forever, and probably they're going to go back to meeting people person per person. But just in case, do you feel that investors will be willing in the future to meet with entrepreneurs like completely online, or are they going to try to keep things like physically speaking, meeting them person to person?
I think maybe they will do more online, and it depends on how successful I think the investments that they make in this period are. But for example, in the UK, a lot of the money and the investments are in the City of London, and there's not a lot that comes out into the regions. So what this is doing is I think will open up to them the opportunities that there are more so in the regions, because there's no travel involved, and they can see the breadth of those opportunities. And I think we'll start to create some sort of parity in the bigger cities outside of London.
Yeah, I think this is going to be very interesting to watch. I'm really curious about what is going to happen, if they are going to go back completely to meeting people face to face, or if they are going to leave open a segment for meeting people online. I think many things are going to change the way they are usually done because of this whole thing. I've seen that even Twitter and Facebook, they have already created a policy that people don't have to go to the office if they don't want to, like they can work from home if that's what they want. And this is going to shift a lot of the money, let's say, from cities and things like that, because if people can, like, I know a lot of people who love to pretty much work from the country, like in the middle of the woods and something like that. And if companies allow them to do that, then I don't think they have any reasons to stay in the cities. Like, for example, for me, I discovered that I really love to be in medieval environments. That is something that I love about Krakow in Poland, and as well the old parts in London. But yeah, I think that we're going to see massive shifts on money. So yeah, I think that is that's going to be very, very, very curious to see how things go in the future.
It will be, and I think that whilst people are now saying that they won't resume back to a normal and it'll be a new normal afterwards, I think that the problem before the whole virus was that people didn't trust people to work at home. It was like, oh, well, we're not sure what you're doing, and we don't know whether you're working effectively. And now I think, we've been forced into it, and they've seen that their businesses are keeping going and people are working, and that it's objective based. So actually they've proven that it can work, and that therefore it can be sustainable. So I think that we will go back to a new different, and also within the cities you've got a lot of office space. It's being paid for at a premium. I think these organisations will realise that, well, actually we perhaps don't need to do this. So I think that the longer term it'll impact the real estate, as to these bodies not having such big spaces. We've always worked remotely as a business, because just by nature of where we are and that we're split across multiple countries. So we've always had that, the mechanisms and the tools in place, where there's a lot of companies that don't have that structure in place to enable the working from home, whereas now obviously they've been given that through forced already.
Yeah, and again, like, there's still people, I know people who are not great at working at home, like they even admit it, and they will definitely love to still work from an office. So there's that as well. And now with everything shifting, what are some new opportunities that you can see for entrepreneurs that maybe they are not aware of, maybe they are not famous enough?
I think the opportunities that they're not aware of, I think, during times like this, it's just the whole thing around technology and digitalization, I think, is going to survive. That is the way that the economy and the globe is going. So I would say if it is something that your entrepreneurial idea is based around some form of technology that's going to digitize something, that's going to do analytics, machine learning, really improve those processes and remove the human element, I think, they're businesses that are going to thrive throughout this. So whilst I appreciate that there's going to be a lot of redundancies as the economy falls, I think there will be some areas that really thrive. And it will be that high skill and high knowledge area that's retained, as opposed to, I think, the lower skill and less knowledge, unfortunately, will be the roles that are affected more.
Yeah, definitely. Also, this is going to be a little bit more of a of a personal question, but if you were able to pick up the phone and call yourself when you were 17 years old, what advice would you give yourself?
I would have said, just any opportunity that is presented to you, grab it with both hands and just take it. What is the worst thing that can happen? And I think as long as you are law-abiding through the choices that you make, then just try it. What is failure? Failure is in our own minds. It's whatever we decide it's going to be. But if you've tried something and it's successful, all well and good. If you've tried something and it isn't, well, then try something else. Who's there to judge you to say whether it's right or wrong, or that you failed even?
Awesome. And I have this, which is like the hardest question that I ask people. But let's say you wake up tomorrow and you're in a different dimension. Nobody knows about you, but you have all your skills, all your experience, and you have 500 pounds in your pocket. So what will you do to get at this point, professionally speaking, with your business as soon as possible?
The first thing I would do is take my 500 and I would go and pay somebody to create me a prototype of my idea. And then I would take that prototype and go and sell it as though it was real. And I would try and sell that first of all into a commercial customer. And then I would take that to the investors as well to pitch for some money.
Yeah, I think that many people still don't think that they can do that, but I see, again, many people like you who are able to do that just to create a very compelling idea and sell that.
Excellent, absolutely. And and there are always, again, there are people there that will help you do it. So generally there are groups of people, or even some of the banks and things offer support around that startup. So I think the key things is to really validate what your idea is. You've got to have a plan, and I'm a great believer that plans are fluid and agile, and they move very quickly, but you absolutely have to have a plan of some description. And I would say spend the time on really researching what you're going to do. And quite often people come up with an idea, so that's the what you're going to do, but they forget about the why. What's the problem that you're trying to solve, and why would anyone buy it off of you, and who are your competitors out there? So go and do that research and build a proper plan together first of all before you embark on anything. And only when you're sure are you going to be able to convince somebody else.
Yeah, and again, there is even people who just, even without having a prototype, if they are able to create a compelling idea, they are able to sell that to investors. And, we have now angel investors and things like that. So there's all that. Is there any last advice that you would like to give to people that we haven't talked into this interview yet?
I would just say, be brave and do it. If you have a good idea, take it and run with it, because you'll kick yourself if 2 or 3 years down the line you see somebody else making a fortune out of the idea that you had. And quite often we'll all say to ourselves, wouldn't this be a great idea? And then we do nothing with it. Well, don't be the fool and let somebody else do it. Try it.
Awesome.
What's the worst that's going to happen? And along the way, I would say there's no such thing as failure anyway, because even if you had a great idea and you could never get it off the ground, you still haven't failed, because along that journey, you have learned a whole host of skills that are going to set you up for the next time you go. Failure is the biggest, for me, failure is the biggest thing that teaches you the most lessons. As long as you learn from them, develop, move on.
I definitely agree with you on that. And where do you want to take EBate? What is the ambition that you have for your company right now?
So my ambition for the company right now is to partner so that we have a global presence. So I'd like to build it up over the next 4 to 5 years and then exit to one of the ERP vendors.
Awesome. And if people want to find you or eBate online, where would be the best place to do so?
The best place would be on our website, which is www.e-bate.io. You can also find us on Twitter. So our Twitter handle is e_BATE_SaaS. And you can also find our page on LinkedIn.
Awesome. I will put all the links in the description of this interview. So thanks a lot for taking your time and being here. I know that you have been very busy, so I really appreciate that you have taken the time to do this interview and to share your knowledge with us.
You are very welcome. Good to meet you.
So this has been the last interview from Level Up. If you like it, please click the like button below and also subscribe to our channel. Or if you're listening from the podcast, subscribe to the podcast so that you will be notified when the next episode comes up. Until next time.